Next guest can help us understand more about the COVID variant from India that's now present in Canada and it's causing such concern, and what difference a ban on flights might make. Raywat Deonandan is an epidemiologist with the University of Ottawa. Raywat Deonandan, thanks again for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Look, lots of concern over the emergence of this latest variant in India, which is kind of running rampant there and which has shown up in Canada now, the B1617. Described by the health officials as a variant of interest, but not yet a variant of concern. What's the difference?
A variant of interest is suspected of being a threat to either diagnosis, treatment, or prevention. A variant of concern has evidence that it's a threat to diagnosis, treatment, or prevention. Then there's the variants of high consequence. We haven't seen those yet. Those are ones in which there are significant threats to diagnosis, treatment, or prevention. So it'll make that shift if it's seen to actually diminish our vaccine capacity, for example.
So Jeff, can you give a sense of a timeline on that? Now that we know that it's around, it's present in Canada, what are we watching for?
We're looking to see if it is indeed hypertransmissible, if it starts overtaking the current dominant strain, dominant variant, which is B117, and if we have laboratory evidence that it can evade our immune system and vaccination. So far, some preliminary evidence suggests that the vaccines we have are actually effective against it. Not perfectly effective, but some effectiveness is all we need. If enough people get vaccinated, then that's a pretty good protection against almost all the variants. So that's good news.
All right. So those are the things we watch for to see, I suppose, how to respond to it. And how do we know if the vaccines we have work against those variants? How can we be confident in that?
There are two ways to do it, and one is epidemiological, the other is serological. The serological approach is you take blood from a vaccinated person, expose it to the virus, and see what kind of antibodies are produced. The epidemiological approach is you look to a country like India, where the disease is prevalent, and you look at the cases and decide and determine and compute how many of those cases were vaccinated and work backwards from there. Now, India only has about 10% of the population has received at least one dose of a vaccine, so it's difficult to get the numbers so far to determine if, in fact, vaccination is effective at the population level against this variant. And they only use two vaccines, the AstraZeneca and the homegrown one, Covaxin. So we probably won't get epidemiological evidence for the effectiveness using the mRNA vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna that we have here in Canada. But all signs point to those vaccines having broad spectrum effectiveness. So I have every expectation that they'll have at least some, if not much, effectiveness against B1617.
So the government taking action now. I guess the question is, should we be banning international flights, including from India, to try and stop these variants from showing up in Canada? Does it work?
I think it does, if you do it right. The objective here isn't to prevent absolute colonization of the country by these variants. It's probably impossible. The objective is to slow it down. Even a couple of cases arriving can seed populations and cause some chaos that we don't need right now. What we want to do is buy time to vaccinate. So that means slowing down the arrival of cases. We probably can't ban flights incoming from India because most travelers come through a third or fourth country, so that won't be effective. It makes more sense to me to ban unnecessary travel outright. If we can't do that, at the very least, we have to put into place really good containment procedures on site here in Canada when travelers arrive. Kind of like they have in New Zealand and Australia. They descend upon all cases with overwhelming might and make sure they're quashed before they enter society.
Let me ask about vaccines. Canada is receiving 1.9 million more doses of vaccine next week, which should help ramp up the rollout in the provinces. Doses coming from Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. But given that our AstraZeneca supply comes from India, it's being delayed now while India tackles the outbreak in that country, and it's not clear when we'll get more AstraZeneca doses. How big of a setback could that be?
It can be pretty impactful, especially since now a lot of the provinces have lowered the age for AstraZeneca to 40, and that's having a fairly good impact. People who otherwise would have waited months for vaccination are getting it now, and I think that's going to help us enormously. So not getting shots from India will slow down that process considerably. On the other hand, given the vaccine hesitancy, especially around AstraZeneca, getting more doses from the competitors may actually work in our favor. It's too early to see. So I'm an optimist. I like to think of it as a good thing. Maybe, but we'll see.
Delays in AstraZeneca raise the debate again of whether we can mix and match vaccines. And full disclosure, I've had my first shot of the AstraZeneca vaccine about a month ago. So if it's going to be pushed out, perhaps indefinitely, and they're talking maybe more doses, in July, when maybe I was going to be scheduled to get it anyway. But what if we don't get AstraZeneca? What do I do?
There's every reason to expect mixing and matching not only to be effective, but maybe even be superior. So that's being tested right now in trials in the UK and other countries. But the fundamental science suggests it'll be fine, if not better. So I wouldn't panic around that.
All right. As you watch the latest responses to the pandemic across the country, how confident are you feeling that we're on the right track, or mostly on the right track?
I think at the end of the day, we always seem to do the right thing, however, a little too late often. So the lesson around the world is the places that do this well act hard and they act early. And we're still learning that lesson. Here in Ontario, it looks like we're making some last-minute good choices that we should have made weeks ago, but it's good that we're making those choices now. And so new modeling suggests that we might be seeing the peak right about now. So unless we really screw things up, which is always possible, we're on the ramp to improvement. It just means we have to tolerate a couple of months of hardship, and then that ramp of normal is joined, and maybe we never get off it ever again. So I'm optimistic because we have an exit ramp, and that exit ramp is vaccination. So we have to buy time to get more jabs into more arms.
All right. Raywat Deonandan, as always, great to get your thoughts tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.